Matching pen set by Cool Blue Rays. It was an early, chilly morning when Anya walked into class, her backpack feeling as heavy as a bowling ball. It made Anya's walk slow and sluggish as she entered her homeroom class. With a wheeze, she slid her backpack off her shoulders and onto her desk, pulling supplies out, including a new shiny Bond Man pencil case she was very proud of owning. It was a metal tin, imprinted with the words Spy Wars in a large font. She took her usual seat up front, moving her heavy backpack to her chair backrest. Resting her forehead in her arms, she felt sluggish and tired from the weekend's special Spy Wars marathon. For whatever reason, the TV people thought it was a good idea to play Spy Wars episodes until well past her bedtime. Didn't they know she had a super important world-saving mission in the morning that she needed to attend to? "Good morning, Anya," Becky greeted warmly, noticing her friend's state. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked, as Anya lifted her head up to return the greetings. "I'm okay. Just stayed up watching TV," Anya yawned, stretching her arms up for a moment and leaning back in her chair. Anya wondered if this is what her papa felt like all the times he worked on missions. "Watching TV past your bedtime again?" Becky teased, giggling and taking a seat, beginning to divulge about her own weekend fun. Something about a shopping trip and eating at an exclusive restaurant with her parents, with promises to take Anya next weekend. Anya then heard the voice of Damien Desmond coming from the front door. He sounded extra crabby this morning. A voice in her mind spoke up, and she recognized it as Damien's. Stupid programmers. Why would they marathon a TV show so late into the night? He demanded no one but himself, then began to reprimand himself for being a Desmond who couldn't turn away from a childish TV. That piqued Anya's interest. Did he like Spy Wars too? It was the only marathon on TV that fit childish, as Becky once called it. Anya was always looking for ways to become friends with Damien, for her papa's sake, but so far she'd had very little luck. And reading his mind was too confusing to decipher what she'd done so wrong to justify his anger. This gave her a little glimmer of hope, however, and she, very obviously, pulled out a cute Princess Honey and Bondman folder, opening it wide to cover her face, much like an old man holding a newspaper up, but giving Damien a perfect view, waiting to see if her plan worked. She could see it now, imagining Damien getting excited and wanting to show off his Spy Wars collection at home, inviting her to play. Giving her papa the perfect cover to infiltrate the Desmonds. She smiled to herself for coming up with a perfect plan. Damien was too preoccupied with his math textbook and talking with Ewan and Emil about the upcoming test today to even turn his head away from them. She dejectedly dropped her folder and sighed, annoyed. What was it going to take to make Damien her friend to save the world? Did he just say there was a math test? Damien spotted Anya's folder during English. She was holding it while moving with Becky to a small reading group for their daily literature time. He remembered spotting it in a shopping catalog for new school supplies, something he admitted he would indulge in from time to time, but would never waste on such a silly piece of merchandise, even if it sparkled from holographic film. Damien shook his head, clear of his thoughts. Stupid, addictive television series. Who cared if it was funny and dramatic and had a heartwarming romantic plot between Bondman and Princess Honey? It was for little babies, and he was anything but that. Especially if someone like Anya Forger liked it. He was required by law to avoid it at all costs. Damien was alone in the hallway, rummaging through his locker when he spotted the pen lying on the floor. He looked around before bending down for a closer look. A sparkly purple pen with a smiling Bondman graced the cylinder. Guess someone lost this. Without thinking, he picked it up, turning it over in his hand. He clicked the top a few times, making a nice snap of a clicking sound. It had a strong spring, a quality he certainly did enjoy in his writing utensils. Taking out a notebook, he scribbled and wrote his name down in purple ink. It was a smooth writing experience, another quality he liked. To say he thought about quality stationery before would be an understatement. Well, if the owner was careless enough to lose a decent pen, then he supposed there was no use trying to give it to lost and found. Without another thought, he pocketed it, changing out his history book for math, going over the practice problems in his head again and again. If he hurried, he could work on practice problems just a little more after lunch, right before the test time came. He ran off for the dining hall, his stomach rumbling for a delicious plate of seasoned rice and sliced steak and garnish. Anya spent half the test scratching her head, and the other half filling in blank answer spaces, only to erase and retry, getting a completely different answer. Why is math a subject? When will I ever need these numbers? Except to remember how many peanuts I can eat in one sitting, or to count how many times Bon asked for tummy rubs. The poor girl huffed, reading between her classmates' minds, but they all seemed to be just as confused as she was. As she looked from her paper, watching Damien oh so proudly walk up to the teacher's desk to turn his test in early, he turned around, spotting her stare, and smirked, practically strutting back to his seat. Anya's desire to punch him blossomed once more, but she'd at least wait until after class for that. Sighing, she did the best she could, with what she remembered going over with Papa before turning in her test, being one of the last students to do so. After that, the teacher collected every test, shuffled them, and announced, "Okay, class, I'll have every student do a peer grading. Please come and pick up a test from the pile to grade for your fellow student." Anya's face perked up. She hoped that Becky would get her test if she got Becky's. Any student would be eager for a chance to cheat a little on a tough math test, and she could use all the help she could get. Then she saw Damien pick up a test, blink in surprise, and look at her with a grin on his jerky little face, waving her test in his hand. She was doomed. Damien couldn't help the petty excitement rising in his chest when he realized he got Anya's test. A single glance at Ray told him that she hadn't done well. Not at all. What is the circumference of a cylinder? 15. In crude handwriting, Anya had guessed the right answer, but there wasn't any work done on the formula itself. A technicality, but still meant she'd lose points. Damien was unashamedly giddy to be attributing to Anya Forger's depleting grade point average. He pulled out a random pen from his case, writing his name down on her test as a peer grader, realizing too late it was purple instead of red. The smiling bondman stared at him. He didn't like it one bit. "It's not my fault she's so stupid. I'm just helping with the process of her being kicked out of school inevitably." The pen judged him harder. Truth be told, the thought didn't exactly sit well with him. Okay, so maybe I don't help move it along as fast, he thought, moving his eyes up towards the teacher's desk. The teacher's back was turned to the class, writing proper answers with formula work on the blackboard. Reaching into his case once more, he pulled out a pencil and eraser. Anya couldn't stop sighing. She was too depressed to even remember to punch Damien like she planned. Not after class ended, or the ride home from the bus, or even when she laid on the couch in defeat, Bond coming over to paw at her back and sniff at her hair, curious to why his best friend was so sad. "I did bad today, Bond. Papa's going to be so disappointed," she explained. "Scion boy got my test, which means I got a big fat 30 on my math test today." She suspected he'd even go as far as changing answers for her to make the score even lower. Yor, overhearing her daughter's troubles, brought over a plate of cookies from the grocery store and a cup of warm milk. "Oh, Anya, it's okay. There will always be chances to improve. I'm sure Lloyd won't be too upset. As long as you tried your hardest, he'll understand." She smiled warmly, sitting by Anya and began stroking her head softly. Anya liked the way her ma's fingers massaged her scalp slowly, making her more relaxed. Bond woofed in agreement, nuzzling her face, making the little girl giggle. "Thanks, Ma. Thanks, Bond. I feel a little better," she said with a smile. Yor gushed over how cute Anya was when she was happy, and thoughts of Anya's math tests were forgotten for the day. Lloyd returned home that evening, and heard of what happened with the math test he and Anya didn't have a chance to prepare for, as she never told him, and insisted on marathoning Spy Wars the entire weekend past her bedtime. At first, he looked sternly at Anya, ready to deliver a no TV for a week punishment, but the look of silent dejection made him stop this time. "We'll have to cut back on your TV time, but maybe if you ask your teacher, you can do a do-over test that we will study together for. Understood?" Anya looked up in a bit of shock and nodded, giving his leg a hug. "Okay, Papa," triumphantly, walking away. Yor gave him a soft look, smiling at his choice to work on Anya's studies and delivering a swift punishment. Lloyd gave her a smile back, hanging his hat and coat. There would be other tests to worry about in the future, he supposed. "Huh? Anya said, getting her test back the next day with a 50 written on her return math test. Was this a joke? A mistake? A miracle? Some of the questions had been filled in with the right formulas and answers written in a forgery of her messy handwriting. Others were crossed off as wrong in purple gelling. The teacher wrote, "Nice improvement," at the top in red. She whipped her head around Damien's seat, smugly showing off his test to Ewan and Emil with his 95 score. Anya briefly wondered if it was possible Damien was a good person after all and hid it from her for whatever reason. If it was true, it was very confusing. Damien caught her staring at him and immediately waved the test at her with a smug grin, and all thoughts of the possibility went out the window. Damien Desmond was a big, fat jerk. But a jerk who helped her cheat a little. She found him after school, at his locker, putting textbooks in his bag. Did the boy ever take a day off from studying? She approached him. "Thanks for helping," she said cautiously, waiting for his response as he looked at her, surprise on his face. He looked around, finding they were all alone in the hallway before answering. "I'm not doing it again." "Then why'd you do it this time?" she asked, genuinely curious, tilting her head to the side. Damien sputtered, unable to answer her properly for a minute, when Anya noticed the pen in his jacket pocket. "Is that my bondman pen?" The last thing Damien ever expected was to be thanked by little Miss Anya Forger. It gave him a weird mix of warmth that he hadn't expected. Why did her gratitude mean anything to him? She was a terrible student, a weird classmate, and yet, under her gaze, his brain refused to properly work, making his face warmer each passing second. She suddenly asked about the pen, and he stopped, relieved to have the subject changed. "Is it? I found it on the floor. I was gonna throw it away, but I just forgot, and," he began. "You can keep it," Anya cut him off. "Huh?" he replied. Anya shrugged. "I don't need it. Consider it a gift for the test," she said. "I already have my Princess Honey pen anyway," she said, pulling out a matching pen with the princess's smiling image. As it turned out, Damien now had one half of a matching set with Anya. "I like that it's in pink," she said simply, before hearing the Eden Academy bell tower chime. "I have to go home now. See you tomorrow, Scion boy." She turned and walked out the exit doors, waving at him before disappearing around a corner. Damien stood in place, clutching the pen in his jacket, over his little heart thumping hard. Maybe Spy Wars wasn't so stupid after all.